All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a company called Street Brewers,
Uh-huh.
um, and specifically looking at their approach to brewing and really sort of how they want to change the
Yeah.
landscape of beer in Belgium, our home country.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so really the question is like, we love Belgian beer.
Of course.
We've got this incredible tradition.
Rich heritage, yeah.
And how can street brewers sort of build on that and sort of
Modernize it.
take it to the next level?
Yeah. So what they're looking at is, obviously there's a lot of talk about sustainability
Mm-hmm.
in all industries these days, and beer is no different. And uh,
Especially when you look at the supply chain.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you think about, just sort of like the life cycle of a beer, right? You've got
And
your
they
ingredients. It's got to be brewed somewhere. Then it has to be packaged, bottled, canned, kegged,
it would
whatever.
transport it.
And then transport it. Yeah. And so all that really adds up, especially the transport in terms of carbon footprint.
Yeah, and I think what really surprised me in looking at some of the material on street brewers
Huh?
is that packaging and transport can be over 50%
Yeah.
of a brewery's CO2 emissions.
It's more than half.
It's incredible. Yeah. So it's like it's not
That's
even
old.
it's not even just the process of making it. It's like getting it to the consumer.
Right.
So this is where Street Brewers comes in and says, okay, how can we
Decouple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decouple those things a bit.
sort of like, reimagine that whole
Yeah.
process?
Yeah. And their solution is really to kind of think about brewing as something that's happening much closer to the consumer.
Right. So basically the idea is that instead of
Super local.
instead of having like these
Big, centralized.
huge breweries that then have to ship everything everywhere, you're empowering
Local business.
local businesses and entrepreneurs to actually do the brewing themselves.
On site. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which has a lot of sort of benefits that we can kind of unpack.
Yeah. Let's dive into that.
Okay.
So obviously, right off the bat,
Sustainability.
yeah, sustainability is huge.
Huge.
And I think, we were just talking about that with the transport and packaging.
Right.
But what specifically how are they actually sort of quantifying
Yes.
the sustainability benefit?
So they estimate, and I mean these are obviously estimates because it really depends on a lot of different factors, but they think that for every 5,000 liters
Of beer?
of beer, yeah, brewed locally,
Using their systems.
using their system, they can reduce emissions by about 2,500 kilograms of CO2 per year.
Which is substantial.
It's huge.
Yeah, and for people who aren't maybe familiar with those kind of numbers, that's about equivalent to the amount of CO2 that 100 trees absorb in a year.
Right.
So you can really imagine like the impact if this model is
Scaled up, yeah.
if this is something that really catches on. I mean, you could be talking
So
about
that potential game changer.
like a real impact on
Emissions, yeah.
on missions. Yeah, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about sustainability. What are some of the other big advantages?
So another big one, I think, for a lot of people is going to be the empowering of local businesses, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
this is something that's
Especially in Belgium, where we have so many
exactly.
small, cafes and bars.
Yeah, and everyone's it's like there's that kind of competition to like be the best.
Right, to have something special.
Exactly. Yeah, have something unique, something
Just something that you can't get anywhere else.
yeah, that you can't get anywhere else. And this really empowers them to do that, right?
Right.
Because they provide this what they call street scale nano-brewery.
So what does that actually mean in terms of like
So
size and output?
yeah, so it's pretty compact. It's not like a giant, industrial brewery.
Yeah, it's not taking over your whole bar.
No, exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's something that could fit in, kind of behind the bar or in a back room.
Okay.
And typically their standard setup can produce about 120 liters of beer a week,
Okay.
which is a good amount for a pub,
Yeah.
for a bar. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like, mass production, but it's enough
Yeah.
to
Right.
give people something.
Offer something special. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a pub owner. You're thinking about like, okay, this sounds interesting.
Right.
Why would I want to do this as opposed to just, buying beer from
For the big guys. Yeah.
from InBev or whatever?
Yeah, so one of the big reasons, and I think this is going to be particularly appealing to people, is the profitability, right?
Okay.
So Street Brewers estimates that by brewing their own beer, these local establishments can actually increase their margins by almost 50%.
Wow. So you're talking about like a,
A significant boost.
yeah, like a real
Well,
tangible.
just a small increase. It's
And what's the reasoning behind that? Is it that the cost of production is so much lower?
exactly. Yeah, so their figures show that the cost of producing, say, 100 liters of beer with their initial setup
Mm-hmm.
is only about 324 euros and 50 cents.
Okay.
Whereas if you were doing it in a traditional microbrewery, it'd be more like 662 euros and 50 cents.
So you're talking about,
More than double.
yeah, more than double the cost. So
Exactly, yeah.
it's really like a significant difference.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so you've got the sustainability angle, you've got the profitability angle. What else makes street brewers sort of like stand out in terms of their approach?
I think the other big thing, and this is something we're seeing more and more of in lots of different industries, is the focus on technology
Okay.
and innovation.
Right. So how are they using tech?
So they're developing this system of what they call connected nano-breweries,
Okay.
which basically means that the physical brewing equipment is all hooked up to a cloud infrastructure.
So it's like Internet of Things. It's like smart brewing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can monitor everything remotely.
So what kind of things are they monitoring?
So it could be things like temperature,
Yeah.
fermentation activity,
Yeah.
all these sort of key parameters that
Right. Making sure everything's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the really cool thing is that data can then be used to optimize the brewing process.
Right. So it's like every batch is getting better because you're
You're learning.
you're gathering data, you're
Wait,
learning.
and is this something that's like specific to street brewers? Like have they
So they have secured some intellectual property in this area.
Okay.
They have an exclusive license for some cloud infrastructure technology from a company called Annabelle Energy.
and they also have a sales agreement for the actual street scale brewery IP from two engineers who developed it.
Okay, so they're really like building up their portfolio of IP.
Right.
But it sounds like it's not just about like patents and
I think their strategy seems to be more focused on establishing an early lead through data.
right, getting that data advantage
Just-
and also like building a community.
Absolutely, yeah. So that they're really big on this idea of like a collaborative platform
Okay.
where brewery operators can share recipes.
So it's not just about like the technology, it's about the knowledge sharing.
Exactly, and we talked about like a spotty brewify kind of.
That's a great name
Yeah.
as a marketplace for recipes.
Right.
So like could you imagine like okay, I'm a new brewer, I've just gotten my street brewers set up.
I'm looking for inspiration.
Yeah, like what do I brew? And then you go on Spotty Brewify and you've got
It's exactly, yeah.
a whole library.
All these recipes from all these other brewers.
Yeah.
And you can even see like ratings and reviews.
Right. It's like the craft beer version of
Yeah,
Spotify.
yeah.
So really interesting.
And they're planning on starting this community development in 2025.
Oh, not too far away.
So-
Okay, so we've talked about the sustainability. We've talked about empowering local businesses.
Right.
We've talked about the technology in the community.
Yeah.
How does all of this sort of fit into the bigger picture of the Belgian beer market?
Yeah, so I think, one of the big trends that we're seeing, and we've seen it in the US for a while now, is this rise of brew pubs,
Right.
right? And that's starting to happen more and more in Europe as well.
Yeah. And I think people are really looking for
That local experience?
yeah, something that's fresh, something that's
Authentic.
yeah, something that's not, mass produced.
Right.
And I think Street Brewers is really well positioned
Absolutely, yeah.
to capitalize on that.
They're right at the forefront of that trend.
Yeah. Okay. So for listeners who are listening to this and thinking, okay, this sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
How can I get involved? How can I be a part of this?
So there's a couple of different ways. I mean, one of the most direct ways is obviously investment, right?
Right.
So Street Brewers is actually planning a new crowdfunding campaign.
Okay.
It's going to be their second round.
So this is something they've done before.
They've done it before.
Okay.
And they're looking to raise about 200,000 euros.
Okay.
And it's going to be on the Spreds platform.
So people who are familiar with sort of the Belgian investment landscape will probably know Spreds.
It's a well-known platform. Yeah.
a pretty common platform for these kinds of things.
Yeah, I see.
And their first round, how did that go?
So their first round was really successful.
Okay.
They raised 160,500 euros,
Okay.
which is, a good chunk of...
I've got a track record.
They have a track record, yeah.
So if people are interested in investing, what should they do?
So keep an eye out on the Spreds platform.
Okay.
It's going to be in the first trimester of 2025.
Okay. So beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year.
And there's a document called the Note to Shareholder Spreads.
That's right.
That will outline sort of the
details of the capital increase.
Yeah. So that's one way to get involved.
Yeah.
What if you're not, in a position to invest financially?
Yeah, so there are other ways to get involved.
So
I mean,
like
if you're, running a hospitality business,
right. So if you're
a cafe owner,
a restaurant, anything like that.
you could could consider getting one of their
With
systems.
getting one of their nano-breweries and actually like
Have a
being
network.
a node in their system.
Exactly. And then you get all the other benefits as well, right?
Yeah.
You get the sustainability, you get the profitability.
Yeah.
And you get to offer your customers something really unique.
Okay, so what if you're not, a business owner, you're not an investor, you're just like a beer enthusiast?
Yeah. So even then, there's still ways to participate, right? So they're launching an online community in 2025.
Okay.
And you can get involved there. You can share recipes. You can give feedback. You can connect with other...
It's a way to sort of like be a part of that
community. And they're also planning a marketplace for brewing-related products and services starting in 2027.
Okay, so
even if you're not a professional brewer,
right,
if you're just a home brewer or even just interested in beer,
right,
there's going to be something there for you.
Yeah, and I think something that's really important as well is just like, even if you can't do any of those things, just talking about street brewers.
Yeah. Spreading the word.
Spreading the word, letting people know.
Absolutely.
Because, the more people who are aware of this, the more successful they can be.
The more that idea can kind of take hold.
Yeah, and I think it's such a cool idea.
It is, yeah.
To think about like, okay, how can we take something that we're so passionate about in Belgium, which is beer.
Yeah.
And how can we sort of like do it in a way that's
sustainable and innovative.
Yeah, that's good for the environment, that's good for local businesses.
Absolutely.
And that's really kind of like pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
Of what's possible.
And it's exciting, right? I mean, it's really cool to see a Belgian company doing this.
Yeah, and I think, for listeners who are interested in this, I mean, it's a chance to really be a part of something
special.
Yeah, something special, something that's really
shaping the future of
beer in Belgium.
Absolutely.
So I would definitely encourage everyone to check out StreetBrewers online.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out for their crowdfunding campaign on Spreds and just sort of see how you can get involved.
Yeah, and think about like how you can be a part of this bigger movement towards a more sustainable and innovative
beer culture.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us on the deep dive today.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.